Hi everybody. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning. Welcome to Power of Knowing Forum's LinkedIn Live podcast, podcast number 97. Today we have the honor of having Dr. Suresh Shan, who will be discussing on a topic. Bring up Dr. Suresh Shan onto the desk. Dr. Suresh Shan, hi. How are you, sir?
Good evening, everyone. I'm fine, sir. Thanks for this opportunity with you all today. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, pleasure, sir. Sir, I'll add your presentation. Maybe we can run through the presentation. Suresh, sir. Yeah. Yes, sir. All yours. Sir will be running a presentation first, then we will take up the question and answer. Sir, you are able to see the presentation?
I'm able to see, sir, but going to next screen, I have to operate. I have to tell.
Yeah, you can click this one here, sir. On the right, you have a arrow button here, right? For you to navigate here. Are you able to navigate? Yeah, I can go ahead, sir. I'll navigate for you. Go ahead, sir.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good evening, everyone. It's pleasure to be with you all today. And the topic, which was very precise to see predictive security using MI and ML to stay ahead of cyber threats. Next. Here, before getting into any of these opportunities in terms of technology, where we have prescribed in terms of the industry 4.0 and getting into the 5.0, where we are trying to see how similar things, which is also participating part of the industry, where cybersecurity plays a major role in terms of how similar things can be taken part of it, and the kind of expectations set part of even the organizations, government, people globally have enough which they felt a need and demand towards cybersecurity and trying to take as much as part of the security, which is also the kind of technologies which are transferring the kind of productivity in terms of the expectation set part of the business. Next. If you see in terms of the predictive security, in terms of the expectations again set, why similar things happens part of the technology, and why similar things are expected a lot more when security plays a major role, and how we can try to get into the kind of information which can be tramped through that, where the basic definitions which is understood, which has enough in terms of how we can define a project, how we can take the kind of expectations set part of the business and the customer in terms of growth and profits, and trying to use as much as on the authentic information. That's where we can see a lot more which comes part of the data collection, which could be through the different omni channels, different expectations set through both customer and the corporate, and trying to get as much as towards the kind of audience which trying to focus in terms of the benefits, which not only just as information, it's more to do with how to do collaboration, how to get engaged with them for a long time. So when you try to utilize the kind of project which has enough in terms of data collection and trying to do it, that's where you can see a lot more in terms of the kind of analysis which gets more towards such kind of trends, and gives you more in terms of the kind of statistics with different levels, different stages, which gives you more into the business benefit. That's where we can see a lot more into terms of predictive analysis. Next, sir. If you see more especially into enhancing the kind of IoT security and privacy, safeguarding the IoT security solutions, where you can see a lot more the system efficiency, where we can give a normal kind of impact when the organization starts seeing the kind of expectations part of IoT, but it gets as much as more when the kind of volumes and the kind of expectations with set part of the system. So you can see a lot more benefits in terms of how we can minimize the downtime, the reliability and the availability of the systems, which creates more in terms of taking the technology. Second, trying to bring out the timely patch management and kind of solutions which is automated and tries to give more in terms of the information. That's where we can see a lot more in terms of the impact which creates more towards the kind of expectation set part of it, and again bringing the ROI in terms of how we can do the maintenance cost, and the kind of reduced information in terms of improving the maintenance planning part of the system and creating a high availability. See, it's all comes down to say, like when you try to use especially the IoT systems, the kind of efficiency is the reach and speed, how fast the system works and how fast it ensures the kind of expectation set part of it, and the reliability which creates more in terms of the security. That's where the trust and reliability comes out part of the corporate business. Next, when you talk about the enhancing the uptimes and trying to bring it out more in terms of the kind of IT strategic plans to do secure IT infrastructure, that's what again the strategy has enough in terms of trying to prevent from the current and trying to make as much as the future predictions for upcoming advancement technologies across IT. If you see the kind of trends which comes part of the system, which enables and empowers to create a strategic plan in terms of hyper automation, edge computing, artificial intelligence, extended reality, you can see a lot more technology which is utilized using the omni channels and trying to bring as much as in terms of the robotic automation process, artificial intelligence, machine learning, and the kind of quantum computing when you talk about edge computing, and trying to do cloud computing and trying to ensure as much as towards artificial intelligence using to defend and trying to articulate using machine learning, and the phase which we are trying to use the reality, extended reality, where the virtual reality and augmented realities and other, which gives you more in terms of getting into multiple the kind of environment which you try to take it, the kind of expectation set part of technology. Just it's not creating a high availability, it is even creating the kind of information which is more real time and consistent, trying to utilize the intelligence. So when you're trying to bring it out in terms of the benefits, especially which comes out in terms of real time and the kind of intelligence which try to be secure and reliable, that's why we are trying to use as much as towards the predictive in terms of maintenance and trying to create as much as the IVR into the multilingual kind of assistance, which gives you more in terms of the edge computing, which gives you more in terms of the productiveness in terms of the project management. When you're trying to create that products and when you're trying to enable such high technology and trying to utilize the intelligence which brings out the smartness in terms of the business customer and the combination of corporate digital transfer towards the customer digital, it creates a lot more in terms of that intelligence which gives you more cognizance in terms of the customer getting engaged and trying to use that kind of virtual information which gives you more in terms of image, in terms of speech, especially when it comes to recognize and trying to create the kind of navigation in terms of applications. These all set to create as much as part of the business. When you see as much as towards using the strategy and trying to see more in terms of the people who depend and try to deploy and trying to take it up, we can see a lot more in terms of useful for a data scientist, useful for a robotics researcher, AI and architect, and trying to bring out even a robotics designer and trying to build in terms of it's more towards edge computing, try to create as much as towards cloud reliability and the kind of DevOps cloud, and trying to create cloud architect. This all it matters a lot when you try to develop part of an corporate deployed in terms of using the edge computing, and it matters a lot when you try to deploy similar things using cloud and how much it is secured and the timely information which is trying to take it up and which gives you more value in terms of how similar things are secured and trustable. When you try to bring it out intelligence, it brings out as much as smartness from the difference in terms of the technology and information which is trying to collaborate using the omni channels, where we can try to bring it out in terms of how similar things can be useful in terms of the extended reality architects and trying to create the front end engineers and who are trying to use even specific in terms of game designers, creativity in terms of creative directors who try to use as much as towards the reliability of big data engineers and robotics, which again brings out in terms of how similar things are trying to create an IT architect or data scientist, which all builds a lot more towards the strategic plan, which is secured, and the IT infrastructure has enough in terms of the security, which is using AI and ML, which gives you more in terms of the preventive, in terms of the prediction, which gives you more positive posture so that this can enable and thinks about the technologies which is across and trying to create multiple platforms utilizing the similar information which tries to give reach and speed so that that end user or the end developer or the scientist or the designers can utilize it effectively and trying to build part of it. Next, When you talk about a predictive model in terms of including the different statistics in terms of how similar things can create the statistical, especially the techniques in terms of analytics, where we can see a lot more in terms of how similar things can be used, part of the differential statistic techniques, part of analysis. But it focus more in terms of how similar things can be made globally, and trying to keep the kind of ratings, or the kind of even the certifications in terms of how the global impact, which creates the reliability in terms of the product quality, and the kind of content which tries to elaborate and trying to collaborate with the people, which gives enormous in terms of the kind of information, which creates more in terms of statistical, and trying to use as much as on the consumer behaviors, where we are trying to create belief behavior, which converts the best business into the kind of the profits of expectations set part of the particular corporate, and trying to use as much as just not as an information, which is trying to use the visualization in terms of scoring and the kind of e patterns, which gives you more towards the predictive behavior. That's where we can see a lot more in terms of the decision maxing, where it gives you more in terms of multiple information, which can support us to try to enable and empower the end user, getting into multiple informations, which can be made more in terms of the kind of model set part of the predictive information, and trying to have that kind of different variations coming together, and trying to give more of a statistical technical information. But this all matters a lot when you have an authentic information, and the information is fully secured, and trying to elaborate more in terms of the kind of information set part of it. It starts from the communication, it moves into the kind of creating the interface, capturing that information, trying to accumulate, and trying to do that analytical information, which gives you more in terms of how predictive gives more clarity towards the predictive security. That's where the information plays a major role, and corporates do have more focus towards having a predictive model, which gives them the different statistical techniques, which gives them that build towards taking towards the business or customer, which gives them that using that interface and omni channels, which is more predictive, and trying to utilize more in terms of the available information. Next. So when you see more as basics to find out to say, like, why predictive security, why similar things can be used to keep us ahead of the cyber threats. It's all again matters a lot to bring out a definition of an intelligence in terms of partners, which can give more in terms of creating the planning phases, designing the phases in terms of trying to utilize the development phase, and trying to create that support phase. This where that area which gives you more in terms of how similar kind of channels can be protected and secured, which gives you more part of AI and ML, which gives you in terms of how similar things can be saved in terms of save time, money, and efforts, which gives more in terms of the creativity in terms of ideas, which builds the corporate and customer. If you see post COVID, a lot more which was from the digital transformation, moved from corporate digital towards customer digital, where every individual customer has been treated as a corporate, and trying to get engaged with them for a long time, and trying to enable as much as part of it. So when you try to adopt this, then have this particular corporate model or a corporate digital is secured, and how we can ensure the secured model of customer digital when we are moving ourselves towards the kind of collaboration, and we are trying to expose to more in terms of the customs, which try to provide in terms of enabling the kind of information which is available in between the competition, and trying to get engaged with the customer for a long time. So the intelligence is not just only at the smartness, it is how secured, how it is protected, and how it is preventively maintained, so that which can give more enormous information, part of infrastructure, part of the software, part of the platforms, part of the SaaS, LaaS, and whichever which we are trying to use for the pass, will give us more confirmation in terms of the kind of secured environment, which gives you more comfort when you have a secured corporate digital moving towards the secured customer digital. Next. So when you try to arrive at an environment, when you try to make it out here, we should have more in terms of getting that intelligence, smartness, how secured when it comes to more public secured information. When we say public here, it could be government, it could be social, it could be even the kind of media and content which comes across, and how similar things can be made. Here we are able to categorize in terms of secureness into two different kinds of behaviors. One, the developer who is working for a startup and trying to get into the kind of environment environment where they are into everything and they are trying to manipulate and trying to exaggerate in terms of that information which they have to build, how they are trying to create that kind of mindsets and the kind of methods and models which gives you different in terms of how public secured information which groomed a set of developers who are working for startups and trying to enable and empower. The next one are the group which work for a big organization as freshers and do make a huge difference using adopting to applying technology, which matters a lot, which we can try to create as much as more in terms of scalable, secured, and kind of unique applications. When you try to set both the trends, like or try to create that security in terms of how similar things can be more preventive, we can apply the kind of decisions which a set of people who are groomed through startups and trying to develop and participate and engage into each and everything of a particular element which part of the entities which get secured and trying to deploy part of it. And again, similar thing can be applied with a different node and trying to create that kind of automated information which can have that intelligence which comes part of artificial and machine learning, which try to create the kind of huge difference which creates as much as applying the information part of it. But this all creates an assumption, creates the kind of information which tries to create an automated code which gives us more in terms of the designs enable part of it. Especially in India, we can see a localization in terms of secured environment which comes part of both the environments, which creates equally the kind of importance and the impact which generates a lot more. That's what you can see the results which coming in artificial intelligence a lot more, which is used part of the local language and trying to use multilingual, where they are trying to develop and trying to secure similar things using deep learning softwares and the machine learning softwares. Next. When you talk about the kind of models where people think like security model is just a particular technology or a tool or just deploying some particular algorithms part of it, so that it creates more in terms of the kind of capabilities part of artificial intelligence. Here the implementation and the impact is trying to create the 360-degree modes of that information and trying to create as much as part of it. Here it enables and empowers basics from the connectivity and the kind of the algorithms which is set part of the patterns, which doesn't focus only on the normal, which tries to bring it out as much as which is on the 360 view. And the secured environment creates more in terms of how similar things can be made part of it and made available similar things part of it. Here some examples were given where already the secured environments do part of it and trying to use the kind of technology which is having part of their secured systems, their behaviors, their kind of expectations set part of the automation, and they create a vision and the kind of a robust which creates part of a cloud or a private public or both or an hybrid environments which is part of the infrastructure. But when it comes to especially the functional part, that's where it comes out hugely in terms of the response. Not only part of that just technology, it has to create the kind of belief behavior which converts the best benefits of the business, which impacts part of the Bharat. That's where the localization in terms of AI and ML, which gives more in terms of the kind of NLPs, which we are trying to create more patterns and algorithms, which gives you more impact in terms of how similar things can be made part of it. Here we are an example where to say that Indian Institute of Insurance has created an insurance claims and trying to put a secured environment where try to build how similar things happens, and over a period of time they are able to sustain and find out to say like it requires more in terms of the information which caters a lot in terms of medical assistance and creating those things part of across the particular area in terms of every 50 kilometers a particular ICU where it is full based with all the facilities which will give them more in terms of the kind of claims which takes part of it. Such a 360-degree view of impact has created a particular value and try to put it. When they are trying to deploy it, they do have enough in terms of the information getting hacked and information is getting diluted and information is getting misused to part of different elements part of the same data, where when they started applying this kind of secured environment and trying to build the kind of predictive maintenance in terms of how similar things can create more value and secured environment as built, there they are able to successfully take this particular project within 90 days. They are able to stimulate and they are able to deploy across it. Such examples are already available part of YouTube, which will give you more comfort how Indian big organizations state wise people do try to use the kind of predictive or even sensitive in terms of information which they can secure and trying to deploy security, which gives them more comfort in terms of taking the kind of information part of AI and ML, which gives them more in terms of variable into multiple secured algorithms. Next. it's a simple in terms of the kind of data capturing, which you can see the complication how it is made part of it. Good olden days, traditionally when you capture data through a particular interface, again trying to take to the backends and trying to informative in terms of trying to use the information within the multiple industry, that's where the kind of local capture happens. But that has the challenge in terms of huge information which is generating from the places which is available, could be any omni channels which is secured and trying to put it out. When you are trying to utilize the kind of data which is coming or trying to reflect part of it, that's what the real challenge. And that's where you can see that wherever the security labs, wherever the things which is not framed part of the preventive in terms of security, where you can see the huge lags where people do get into so many other disturbance or other mishandling of information, that's what the scatterness comes part of it. So the kind of multiple and the kind of available information which has to be secured when it is captured from the level basic level, it started capturing into the system and trying to get enabled and trying to get that as much as in terms of advancements, the intelligent data whichever which is generated part of the organization should have a preventive secured mechanism. Otherwise they will land up in having more data which doesn't have more impact, or when it is required or reliability in terms of information, it won't be available part of the system. Next. When you see a specific in terms of that impact which comes part of the cybersecurity in terms of especially when it comes to IT security, we can find out more in terms of the kind of space like no which we can see a lot more in terms of people complain to say it creates more in terms of the technology price, or it creates more in terms of the kind of information which is not easily available or it's not within the budget within the cost. So that's where we have to bring out that kind of impact which is part of the cost, which in terms of how similar things can be secured, and that impact should be from the day one when the particular information is framed and particular algorithm is set. It should have that minimum culture of the organization and culture of the customers, culture of the business entities who do develop part of it and trying to make the budget in terms of cost part of it. And again the kind of distributed information is a challenging one, where if you see good olden days, it's more to do with centrally stored and distributed data capture and move to decentrally deployed environments. Now it is getting to distributed environment. That's where you can see a lot more risk is on the data and trying to have a lot more attacks or a lot more kind of hacks happen part of the company system. So the kind of distributed model should have more planning in terms of predictive using the available and affordable information, which gives you more in terms of the operational distribution. And the kind of again revenue losses, where you can see like kind of mobility, especially the technology whichever is moving from towards the corporate towards the customer, where you can see a lot more risk is part of the mobile mobility systems and the IIoT system. That's where you can see a kind of increased number of customers turnover due to the kind of attacks happening due to the kind of misuse of information, which creates a lot more in terms of company to lose that some percentage of information, which could be very minimum or which is very less today, but it will have a huge impact when the multiple customers do utilize more and trying to overcome towards of the predictive information part of the various impact, which creates more in terms of why the predictive information towards cybersecurity is more important. And again the kind of information which currently we can see a lot more data is distributed towards the mobility and IoT systems, which creates more in terms of the particular intellectual property itself is misused or stolen or trying to get into the wrong hands, like how similar things can be created or how similar preventive information can be protected in terms of that particular information. That matters a lot, and which gives you more in terms of how the impact of cybercrime, which creates more in terms of IT security, should be part of the culture of the organization. That should set more in terms of how similar IT securities are part of that particular DNA of the organization. Next. If you see the kind of workplace which is again getting into more in terms of security strategy, where again the offices now, if you see good olden days, we do have the remote and rural locations do have the, because of the infrastructure, we have more in terms of the particular location as more in terms of distributed information and trying to have some data or some information part of some other gadgets which is used part of it. Now since which is people can use for work from anywhere from any place or working from home, or those kind of assess vulnerabilities which has created and built a lot more in terms of how similar things can be adopted and trying to create that safety measures should be part of the corporate access. And the kind of workplace has created enormous in terms of creating and control access, which has to be similar as a corporate, which they feel comfortable when the particular device of a mobility or an IoT is getting into that. How similar can be having that access to the right person, right technology, right project, right application, and restrict the access to the critical control points, which get more in terms of access part of the few people, which is part of the system. And again, trying to create not only just as an alert authorities alert systems, which creates more in terms of the monitors, which is part of the workplace, which now should create the kind of the stimulation in terms of how the artificial intelligence and machine language should get more add to that to avoid similar kind of problems, which is considered part of the workplace. And the strategies should bring as much as into the audit procedures. Nowadays, the kind of technology which is deployed, which has enough in every 2 hours, it's run a part of the kind of workplace cybersecurity strategy, and trying to conduct as much as weekly systems audits and determine the kind of improvement areas which requires more in terms of develop and implement, trying to bring out as much as planned towards the future systems. Here, if you see, the workplace is going to play a major security strategy in terms of future, because we are going to open such information towards into getting into community cloud. When the data of a particular corporate is getting shared and trying to put it, that's what the real challenge. That's why we are trying to get adopt and trying to fix it part of the system. Next. And the current trend, if you see business cloud security, where even though people do have enough opinions before COVID, now after COVID or post COVID, you can see a lot more improvisation part of the cloud security, and trying to improvise in terms of how similar things can create as much as a part of your product user identity, and trying to even build systems part of the cloud model, where it could be a hybrid model, it could be an on premise, or it could be on shore, or trying to use more in terms of a community cloud. All those things which creates as much as like how to try to bring it out, even terms of basics in terms of how to improve the kind of password security procedures, even the access management which you try to take it out, and trying to see as much as enormous information which gives you more in terms of cloud security. This area which scatters a lot for SMEs now, it is blooming as much as towards the kind of expectations set part of the business cloud, and the kind of security already inbuilt. All those players who are trying to see as much as the protection in terms of preventive secured environment, which gives them more comfort in terms of thinking about more business and elaborating more business, getting into more customers, and getting into more different segments part of the customers, and enabling the business process to move to next level. Next. If you see again, it was one of the queries when we talk to especially the people who are part of the cybersecurity and trying to utilize part of the solutions, where the kind of security softwares, how similar things can be compared, and trying to utilize part of the systems, and how we can get the ratings part of the systems, how we can try to see that, which will give you more in terms of the preventive maintenance, which you try to build it out, which we can see kind of the softwares which we try to see, and the kind of features which gives you more comfort, and trying to utilize in terms of future, and trying to do even the compatibility based on our legacy, our user systems, which could be part of your past SaaS and the as, which gives you more in terms of the kind of expectation, not exactly on the price and the ratings, which gives you more comfort in terms of how similar decisions can be taken and planned towards executing the security part of it. Next. Here, it's a discussion more in some terms of e-business. When you see in India, especially e-business in India is less to do with electronics, more to do with emotions. So you can see a lot more in terms of that information which comes especially from the supervised learning and unsupervised learning, and trying to ensure as much as part of the reinforcement of learning algorithms. That's where you can see a lot more, which gives you more in terms of disparity, demography, and development, which gives more in terms of the multiple information from the different states with the different regulators, different impact, which again considers to be part of the financial impact, or more to do with medical or health, or the regulators, which creates more in terms of information, which gives you more in terms of the regulated model, which delivers that what expectations set part of the technology, which gives you more not only from the predictive, it is giving more comfort in terms of how similar things can be expanded. Next. Here you can see a lot more in terms of how similar things can be used, part of the AI based control management systems, how similar things can be used in RPA, ML, NLP. If you see as a technology, this all brings out as a dashboard which gives you more in terms of the security threats. But if you see specifically in terms of the kind of culture and the value system which is part of AI based cyber security set, and trying to create as much as into an automated control management, there you can see a lot more into creating the vulnerability monitoring and trying to avoid the specific problems or concerns to your organization or to controls. And this controls gives you more in terms of an automated one, which gives you more in terms of how you can build your own controls, your own impact, which gives you more business in terms of the comfort. Next. Here we can talk more in terms of the tactics, which we try to see more into a TCP IP protocols used, where it's a given example where when you're trying to utilize more operating from a rural India and trying to see vice versa, where we can see a lot more, which gives you more comfort and more impact, which gives more in terms of how similar things can be taken part of it. Next. See here again, we have taken specific in terms of a concept where we can see the kind of algorithms, how it is predicting and trying to prevent, detect, and response monitoring, and gives you a different DLML AI, which gives you more in terms of data features and algorithms, which gives you more comfort from the available information. Next. If you see more again into the deep learning in cybersecurity, it has more into the IDS and IPS systems, where it gives you more towards dealing with a separate specific which are dealing with malwares and spam in terms of social engineering detection. When you talk about more in terms of natural language processing, deep learning has brought out as much as more towards to deal with those spams, which is specific to your organization, specific to the deliverables part of the system. Next. Slightly I'm rushing it out since in the interest of time, so that we can have more time for the question and answers. So here we can see more in terms of ML, which gives you more in terms of the network protection and the endpoint protection, which gives you more in terms of how network attacks can be scanned and trying to do more in terms of information. And again, preventive measures, how when the categories as malware, spyware, and ransomware, we are trying to get the classifications which can give more focus towards preventing part of the system. Next. Here we can see how similar things works part of the different database, different platforms, different we can say PaaS, SaaS, and specific, which counts more part of the cloud and trying to create as much as predictive forecasting in terms of recommended for the course of actions or possibility synthesis, which gives you more in terms of how cybersecurity can be used part of ML and try to give as much as smartness in terms of the information, which gives more into that. Next. Here as specific in terms of AI and ML in terms of cyber security, which we are trying to see more how we can have that online frauds, which is coming part of the financial services, especially when you try to operate more in terms of the cloud change cyber security and trying to use the authentication when you try to have a remote and having more in terms of sensitized information which is scattered across, and trying to use with the available and affordable infrastructure, how the network security and the kind of things works part of the speed and reach and enables the organization part of the system. Next. If you see more in terms of the outcomes and the kind of unstructured big data and trying to utilize part of data preparation, explanatory analytics, today the system is empowered and today the system is available part of the kind of metadata and trying to optimize as much as with the validations and trying to utilize part of operation model. Today we can define and trying to bring it out as much as closer towards bringing that information which could be specific to some particular articles, blogs, website, which information can forecast into that, and trying to give enough more potential data, which gives you more in terms of the scientific information, which happens more in terms of the belief behavior syntax, which is happening in terms of impact part of the social. Next. If you see reactive and proactive, and again we can see part of the orchestra program which gives you more on that. It's again subject to the cost and the impact which the organizations do plan part of the security automation, but a lot more which gives you more in terms of proactive, in terms of bringing it out in terms of reactive, it has more a huge impact. But the preventive of bringing both proactive and reactive before time and trying to ensure it and trying to create that security automation matters a lot at the end of the day, and kind of that efficiency and effectiveness gives that more into the business controls and trying to enable and empower similar systems part of it. Next. Here I have given some examples. You can just we can go through that. One is on the automobile vehicle, and second one is at an all-in-one tractor, which how similar things made part of it and how the data is going to process. And here the impact of car is what trying to utilize as much as part of the localization, and the all-in-one tractor will get into the product manufacturing and ensuring the product convert into the kind of expectation set part of the farmers. For example, if you are trying to say tomatoes are part of the farm, they would want to convert that into sauce and sell it from the farm. It should exit from the farm as in form of sauce or tomato sauce which is coming part of it. Those kind of expectations part of digital, that's what the kind of security is important, and the preventive measures will give you more in terms of the kind of expectations set, not only part of vehicle, gives you more in terms of how similar things can change the lives part of the people. Next. Again, one example which we say the kind of expectation set, and the secured information data flows from the tourist, and the kind of e-call which supports part of people where they can rely on the government information which has enough impact, which can a particular person can travel from point A to point B with the kind of facilities available part of the system, and the kind of preventive information which gives you more comfort, which gives you more in terms of how similar things can be even supported when similar things get drawback in between. Next. And this is a current example which is going in terms of the kind of transport ecosystem. The all transports as exposed as much as towards the customer digital information, where the preventive security has playing an enormous role, where all those technology today, if you see their individual background, success is not just as ecosystem, it's fully secured and trying to build and trying to continuous process which gives them more in terms of automotive, transportation, telecom, internet and cloud, and trying to use that heterogeneous communication. These are the impacts which will create more in terms of building more preventive security systems. Relying upon such systems will again create the reach and speed part of the system. Next. Here, this example is to have the sensors, how it is using the secure systems and how the similar practices taken part of it. Next. Again, the technology wise for the developers, we are given like how similar things can be used part of the secure network so that it can give more comfort while from the development stage. You no need to wait for an integration to have the sharing data and trying to utilize. Next. We can have the mobility and IoT systems which gives you more comfort in terms of trying to take part of it. Next. It's an ITS system where you can see a lot more different information across people, which starts from the vehicle, which gives more in terms of traffic control, trying to bring out the concerned organizations from the public networks, police, and trying to set the civilian organizations and CSR kind of people try to bring it out. All information which gets clubbed and trying to utilize an ITS, intelligent transportation system, purely secured in terms of how backends are being trying to take it out, how similar information getting exposed and trying to utilize more of that. These are the examples where you can see a lot more preventive cybersecurity and security information is available part of your mobility and IoT. Next. Here I'm trying to show like how the data centers are moved part of the business artificial intelligence and ML, where you can see on-premise data center is moved to ECS enterprise corporate cloud service and get into high data density data center, which gives you more in terms of tools can be used. Next, which has moved now from all the private public hosted cloud towards getting into the community cloud. So that's what the strength, that's what the impact which is used part of it. Next. Again, big data you can see as like a Ola Uber example I given here, where the information is what, to keep it simple to say, people think like there are two types of data. One data supports the customer, one data supports the corporate. Today whatever the data which is supporting the corporate is enabled to empower and trying to maximize and trying to do business out of it. Now similarly, similar data will move towards from corporate towards the customer. Every individual customer has to create that data ecosystem where individual customers will get benefited equally and trying to contribute part of the data information. Next. The synergy of data which we are trying to do it, and the kind of synergy in terms of people try to see why similar things are required, where is the next stage, how things are getting into energy, trying to build part of it. Next. You can see like the kind of pressures which is again molding the cybersecurity, why it is required, because everybody wants to achieve the quality in terms of new products, new service, and lower cost and high quality. But you can see the kind of pressures put, every individual pressures creates a security threat, and the particular things are all today generalized using the technology. Until this technology which is not having the public information secured, they will get into maximum more pressure towards the organization, and organization will be in trouble. Next. The domains, again we are trying to show it out, like how the domains we do have the kind of preventive measures in terms of how similar things can be taken. Because majority time technology people think like the technology domain people think about service domain. Technology people should think more about the changes in the legislation. They have to bring as much as impact part of it. And the kind of AI ML of a service domain should be from the technology advantages and advancement, which should give more on that. And the financial domain is supported a lot more from the information part of the market dynamics, which gives more in terms of preventive maintenance to try to take it up. And overall organization will have more in terms of customer value. Next. Here we are having a focus in terms of how an AI can have more in terms of the technology, but you can see internally how the preventive security measures, which can be part of the same process, how it is seen and how it is visible, which gives you more comfort in terms of trying to take to the systems, which gives you more of a smart enterprise. Next. Here we are showing a banking system, how the banking system is now moved towards an end-to-end model, where it's not just a normal thing. You can see all the delivery channels are now moved with the kind of expectation set part of the customer, where we can see a lot more secured covenant, secured environment, preventive, sensitive, all kind of data which is exposed to people, which is into multiple diversified environment in terms of different entities. That's what the real challenge comes in, and real challenge is getting more maximized part of it. Next year, you can see the nano systems, which is again getting into more in terms of how similar things can be used part of it, and trying to utilize part in terms of information can be taken part of it. Next, you can see the decentralized automation in terms of the corporations, how similar things can be made part of it, and how similar things get distributed. Why the security systems has to be there, otherwise they will get into decentralized corporations, but they couldn't have the functions because of the decentralized information, which is secured and as per the regulated model governance also empowered part of it. Next. It's now the expectation is centralized, decentralized, distributed. So that's what the challenge. That's where we are trying to create more in terms of that information, which gives you more comfort. How similar things has to taken it up. Why similar things are expected to be part of the preventive maintenance has that impact is because of the mode which everybody is taken it up. That's why the control should be more towards the technology which has more threatening, like just trying to utilize that particular information. Next. Here which we are just trying to take that predictive threats which is ongoing now, which you can see in terms of how similar things taken from the SMEs, especially from the people who depend more on the financial transaction, try to take it. Next. You can see more in terms of a security cloud, how the VMware Carbon Black, which specifically I mentioned, where these things are taken again by SMEs, which they are trying to take it up. The next one again, you can see next cyber threats, which gives you more in terms of the information. And again, this all 20 maintenance is part of it. At least we have to cope up with the time. We That's why we have rushed and we are trying to take it up. Here it's a self-explanatory. The books as information, it should not be just as a books. It should be shared, and it should have that impact of that secure knowledge center, so that that particular organization will also grow and that information will be seen part of it. Technology is neither good nor bad, but nor it is neutral. It's certainly an uninvented. The future of only technology 2030 will be having a secured environment. All those players will have a secured environment. Next. Thanks for your valuable time, and I'm open for questions.
That you did. And thank you for running out with 50 plus slides in 40 minutes, sir. It was a marathon run. I could see rushing out things there. Informative session, how security is getting added. Few questions that I have from the audience are on the foundational insights. How do you AI and ML traditional cyber security measures, and what primary benefits over the conventional methods? What is that we can get there?
So here, it's a great question, first of all, and again, just I will add that why that 40 slides or 50 slides is what, like this subject preventive maintenance is required because awareness is less among the people and the data information. Again, that's what it has come out part of the question also. It's
Hmm.
not just AI ML; it's more to do with the cultural values part of the company organization, and the impact which is coming part of the business. So if you see, the custodian today is what more we try to push off to say whether that particular data is part of the corporate, part of the particular project or information, or particular customer or the beneficiary part of it. But if you see in terms of the beneficiary or custodian is the customer who is trying to share that particular information, trying to execute part of it. So he is the custodian and he is to take necessary information to share it and take it out. But same way, if you see from corporate using the AI ML, they should trying to distinguish to add values so that the similar problem is not reinvented or again faced again. So the matrix of the corporate should be more focused in terms of the outcomes and trying to mitigate that risk. That's where the reality comes out. If they are doing preventive, then that's well and good. If you are they are trying to do at least reactive or proactive, but let them do timely so that that huge impact of protecting the customers, it should be more important. Yeah, sir. Back to you, sir.
Yeah. Sir, what are the key algorithm models used in predictive security, sir?
Sir, one basic model is you should have authentic data.
Yeah.
Majority time people talk about data and people try to talk about only patterns. People talk about the functional part of the tool. See, tool is a tool. Again, like now what we are trying to extract from where that particular data is extracted, that's very important. So
Okay.
authentic data is very important. Second, if you see the patterns of the algorithms is what time, money, efforts is very important. So if you are able to ensure that particular data which is captured current and trying to elaborate, which will have a huge impact. The data which is captured decades before will have a different impact, and the data which is captured which for people who doesn't have the stakeholders will have a huge impact. So algorithm pattern should have time, money, efforts, which focus more in terms of how similar things can be contributed when it is handled in a distributed environment. Yes, back to you, sir.
When we do the best practices for integrating AI and ML into the existing cybersecurity, what are the best practices that we should look at or while we integrate?
First, you should have the culture of the organization,
Okay.
what they are trying to protect, whether what trying to take it up. If that is fixed and that internal customers have that wish of trying to execute it, then comes part of their existing external mediators in between whom so they are trying to do business with, trying to collaborate using omni channels. These two, they have proper information, they are trying to elaborate, then that's where the reality comes part of it. I have seen some of the areas people are able to enable even the secured information directly or indirectly, where the customers area customers expectation was set part of it and they get engaged for a long term instead of
Mhm.
for a short term. So those are the areas which will give more to them. Both corporate and customer are equally responsible when similar things execute using any of the omni channels.
Sir, some tools that predictive analysis, predictive security vary across different industries, such as finance, healthcare, and retail. Some of the tools you can do for predictive maintenance.
Sir, here instead of getting into the name of the tools, I would recommend to see Lee, the size of the organization is very important. When I am trying to categorize average, medium, and you can say a small and a bigger one. So
Hmm.
bigger ones will have a predictive in terms of the information which caters a lot with the kind of organization which has crossed. Like if you see an SME, even though they are very less and but they are running for a longer period, they can't
Hmm.
just deploy a security tool and trying to elaborate. But same in SME, which is started now with even some huge number of people, but still they are able to deploy and try to take it up. So it's organization to organization. Again, the kind of culture, especially I can see it as number of years they have already run the show, will give them the challenge in terms of what type of tool it's going to matter at the end of the day, which they are trying to deploy part of it. If it's a small, even medium average, people do have that. If they have run even more than a decade, it requires a tool which analyzes for the full decade what type of areas which they have went through and what type of pressures they have handled during crisis critical times will give more impact for them to have better prospects part of business and the customer growth.
Sir, you have spoken about insights. Some insights on how medium business sizes can leverage AI and ML for their cybersecurity needs.
See, they can categorize two areas. One is on the internal business, where trying to elaborate and trying to make part of it, where you can bring out not only from the knowledge, they can do a competitive, predictive information, which gives them more in terms of how similar things can be secured part of it. For example, nowadays something has come out part of finance and medical, where they are able to create something called a community cloud. They are able to expose or put the data where people started taking opinions. which finance
Okay.
company I can go for it, which medical health I can go for an operation. So opinion polling has come out already into that, and technology is already playing a role. But within that, how the similar information which can go to the deep level in terms of AI ML, which will give them more comfort in terms of the customer is deciding based on the cost. Today, the customer is deciding only on the positive shown by the system, but
Mhm.
positive parameters has to be further decentralized or customized based on the customer expectation. Could be cost, again could be betterment, or could be the best technology used part of it. Those are the elements which will get add on. Those kind of algorithms will give you more comfort in terms of opinions when people do take part of medical and finance.
Sir, what would be the predictive security evolving in the next 5 to 10 years, sir?
You can see finance is going very global. Like you can see already the kind of latest technologies you claim it, which is already into that, and people started getting
Mhm.
into different. I can say it's a finance war. That's what it is going, and I can say we already started speaking on cyber security economics. That means
Okay.
how much we can protect overall part of GDP and data, everything part of it. So next 5 years we can have anything which travels, which uses technology, should have a minimum basic security concerns of addressing and be ahead of preventive measures. That will give you more comfort in terms of trying to take it. And any technology without security, in my opinion, both corporate and customers should try to avoid. That will give more comfort in terms of getting into the better technologies. Best practices will set new technologies, because cybersecurity is not a technology, it's more to do with a culture value. It's more into a discipline, how similar things can be taken it. But a country like India has discipline. We do have even normal things comparatively to other countries. We do a lot more. It starts from our fooding habits, where
Yeah.
how we take food and all. So similar things can be deployed, but it has a huge impact which should play part of academics, and academics should take it part of the national education policy, how much we will build, so that next level users who come down the line 5 years will be fully having that information, at least what things not to do, rather than what things to do is important, is very less important, but what things not to do is very very important.
Sir, some predictive analysis case studies where security significantly was reduced and the impact of cybersecurity, sir.
I can say transportation, sir. That's why I've taken some of the example, because when I was trying to select even slides,
Uh-huh.
where I couldn't even reduce single slide of ITS, especially the information technology systems, which is used in transport. And again, part of our G20, we are trying to have a roadside travel from India to US. Those are the projects coming in. Those are the projects which already people thought of doing it. And if you want to have multiple countries participating, different countries with different laws, regulations, everything with information. Again, we know how they are going to handle left hand drive, right hand drive. These are some basic questions we
Yeah.
are talking about, and people thinking about transport industry is getting into creating a wow factor of an experience where work from office, work from home. I'm sure somewhere we'll have work from your vehicle, which is not far. So that's the way things are seen, and things are seen more put to the technology. And the security will have more impact, because when you talk about working from vehicle, which should be more of a security environment, gives you more comfort in that. That's where the reality, and that's where the government organizations, corporate, including the technologies which you can see small. So that's why I show in one of the slide, which is almost some 21, 22 different corporates participating and trying to create a wow factor. So we can see a lot more in transport, but I strongly believe transport will get into different things like health, medical, again finance part of it. These all the things will evolve, and surely an automobile corporate will do a lot more. Again, they have demonstrated in the past also. In future
Okay.
also, the automobile industry will do a lot more part of it.
Some pros and pro tips and expertise. What advice would you give for cybersecurity professionals looking to specialize in AI and ML driven security strategies?
First thing is what I would want them to select within the cybersecurity, instead of touching all the areas, let them select one option, which could be more of an identity or whichever areas they are comfortable with. Let them focus more on that to bring it out. And that area, when they are trying to elaborate, we'll try to see a lot more from the corporate, because whenever I talk to corporate, they either argue with me or mixed more with the kind of corporate versus individual identities. So the importance of security experts, I would say, let us treat the identities, especially who are all participating, could be corporate, could be individual brokers, agents, sub agents, who are all doing the business intermediators, and the customer should be treated differently, should have a different mechanism of identities, will give more comfort towards it. Again, when you talk about the larger tools, which we'll talk about AI ML, should have more synthesized information which is from the local. Today we are trying to create some global data and trying to put it back and trying to force that to see similar cultures and value systems are seen part of it. I would recommend try to build some authentic information part of the local, which will give more impact to that. For example, you can see the opinions which good olden days, the medical opinions were taken based on the global impact and global parameters. Like one of the question was said, like whether this hospital is a triple A or triple A plus. But
Ah,
in India, I never heard even doctors saying like this hospital is triple A, triple A plus. So such information should go mature to see the kind of problem I have and which expert of that particular hospital is going to give me more benefits or those concerns. Localized authentic information, locally authentic information secured, which is given back to the customers, going to have more impact part of it. So these security researchers, experts should get still more into the localization, trying to find out how similar things can do it. And the expectation set down the line 5 years, we are going to have enormous potential of rural people getting into the technology. Already enormous potential where people have seen the mobility and IoT is going more. So there we have to be more secured, and there we have to do it. That's going to be the real challenge. And already India, one good thing is what we have proved to the world. We people have implemented the paisa model into all the groceries. So a person can play using a digital of 20 paisa or 10 paisa using a digital. Today it is possible. If that's so, and how secured and how it's going to go to the next level, it's going to be the challenge. It's not far, but I would recommend security people should focus more to bring out localization in terms of how it benefits to the last mile customer will have a huge impact in terms of volumes, and that's where you can see India prospering, or India prospects will have more value towards a secured environment. Even though one or two events or incidents, accidents could happen, but as a larger volume, we can be more secured and we are not so vulnerable compared to other countries. We are trying to do similar basic things where we are already comfortable in doing something and demonstrated to the world. We are able to implement a digital paise. Why not digital secured paise could be the next term, and we should focus more and let the cyber security experts focus to say, irrespective of the money, how similar treatment can be given if it is 0 or 1 lakh. What could be the money could be anything else, but the security potential is same, and that's a cost and that's a betterment we can bring and show part of security is going to be the differentiator part of one.
wonderful, sir. So, with your insights, that this again, I want to repeat. It's been a marathon presentation by you, sir. Thank you for running so many slides. Lot of insights which we have discussed. I would like to summarize as we have come to the end of the show and we are running on top of the hour. So, what I would summarize is cyber security is going to be the next big thing that is happening in the technology space, because we are going to have connected devices across. Telecom providers are supporting, medical devices are getting supported. There are a lot of data which is coming up. That data, how secure we can keep, and it is going to be personal data which is going to be a big player for us. With DPDP coming into enforcement very soon, I think the cyber security laws also will strengthen in India to manage the kind of data that is freely available in the market now, which will put a lot of care that has to be taken for the data that is collected across, right? That's what you've been telling in your presentation. It is across transport, across banking, it is across medical devices, or and even our mobile devices that are there, which transmit data, which has to become a primary source of data for us to analyze, review, and predict most of the security issues that are prevailing at the moment, and also build systems that will ensure security is at the maximum and no user is getting affected with his data getting lost. Right, sir. With that, I think that is the summary that I have based on the presentation that you have and the questions that have come up on the session. You would like to add something, sir?
Yeah, no, only one request to the cybersecurity experts is what predictive security is an ongoing process. It's not just a technology for today or tomorrow. So my expectation, or my what do you say, the AI ML from you to contribute is what every your side at least start putting some of the problems what you come across. No need to put the company's name. No need to put the problem who was faced. Put that problem and put that AIML as a speakers. We will tell everyone to say cyber product companies do have a site part of them where they are going to talk about preventive security, which is using the AI and ML, which will have you a more informative alerts, which will keep you ahead of the cyber threats. So my request to cyber team or cyber companies, do create one site part of your site where the particular link will have the predictive security, which is nothing but whatever you come across, without even putting any company. But we will go and spread to everyone to say every Indian cybersecurity company will have a link which will give them the kind of problems what they faced and they overcome, which will be an example for you to avoid similar things in near future. That's
Yeah, right, sir. The point that many people don't report the cyber crimes, fearing a lot of things that come into picture. So I think that awareness also has to increase. While if there is a cyber threat that you faced, you should be in a position to say this is what is happened. uh, I think, see, it is like when you get fever, you go to the doctor. That kind of a thing is what happens when you are faced with an attack or you feel there is something fishy. You should report it to the concerned authorities, which will give us a knowledge base saying that if this kind of thing happens, or this is a case study, which can give lot of insights for us to prevent in future incidents. That becomes a database. Again, we are using AI and ML. It learns on itself, and this predictive analysis can have a larger data which can get populated or generated, saying simulation can be done. These are the things that we can look at. We encourage, as Dr. Suresh Shan said, we need to have a culture that is built in, where when you face an issue, report it. Don't put your name, organization's name. You just can give a high level thing, and there can be a one-on-one discussion with the person that you want to. You can say this is the mail ID, or this is where I can be reached. I don't think so. We are in a age where you will get spammed or stuff like that. That systems are in place at the moment where you share your mail ID. I think that kind of a security is already there in the, at least in the Indian context. If there is an issue, I think cyber security is more become more active, and with the new policies coming in the DPDP, there are a lot concentration given on to individual security on data. Right, sir? Suresh, sir?
thank you, sir.
Thank you for being part of the show. It was a great session that we had, a marathon session with some questions and stuff. Thank you for running that session. With this, we could want to conclude our session for the day. Thank you for being part of the show. Good day, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you all.